There's a pain you never imagined you could feel. It's when you have absolute certainty that you've found your twin flame. When every fiber of your being recognizes that person as your other half. When you feel a connection that transcends everything you've ever experienced in life. And then they reject you. This isn't ordinary rejection, the kind you've lived through before. It's like the entire universe conspired to show you heaven and then slammed the door in your face. As if your very soul had been denied by the one person who should have recognized it instantly. You keep asking yourself how this is possible. How can someone who should be your perfect match simply not feel the same way? How can such a deep connection exist on only one side? And worse yet, you start questioning your own sanity, whether you really felt what you felt, whether it was all just an illusion created by your desperate need for love. But what if I told you that your twin flame's rejection isn't the end of the story, but only the beginning of something far more powerful? What if this unbearable pain you're feeling right now is actually the first sign that you're about to go through the deepest transformation of your life? Carl Jung understood that not every soul encounter comes to materialize in union. Some come to awaken, others to heal, and still others to force us into an evolution that would never happen if things were easy. Your twin flame's rejection might be the most important event of your spiritual journey, the catalyst that will transform you into the person you truly came to be in this lifetime. In this video, you're going to discover why this is happening to you, what it really means when one soul recognizes another but chooses to walk away, and most importantly, you'll understand the 5 stages that come after rejection, and how each one will transform you in ways you can't yet imagine. What I'm about to reveal here will completely change your perspective on this pain that seems meaningless. And if you stay until the end, you'll discover the secret that took Jung years to understand about why some of the most powerful connections in our lives come disguised as devastating rejections. Because maybe, just maybe, you weren't rejected by your twin flame. Maybe you were chosen for something much greater. Before we understand what happens after rejection, we need to grasp what the term twin flame really means through Carl Jung's lens. Because the internet is full of dramatizations about this concept that confuse more than clarify, and you need the raw truth, not comforting fantasies. Jung didn't use exactly this terminology, but his studies on anima and animus, on synchronicity and the individuation process, provide the most solid scientific foundation for understanding these extraordinary connections. A twin flame, from the Jungian perspective, isn't your other half, or the person who will fill your emotional voids. It's something far more complex and transformative than that. It's the person who carries the perfect projection of your anima or animus, the interior counterpart of the opposite sex that exists within each of us. When you meet your twin flame, you're not simply falling in love with someone. You're recognizing fundamental aspects of yourself reflected in another person. That's why the recognition is so immediate and overwhelming, as if you've known this person for lifetimes. But here's what almost no one tells you about twin flames. They don't necessarily come to form lasting relationships. In fact, they often come for exactly the opposite. They come to break, to destabilize, to force you to grow in ways you'd never grow in a relational comfort zone. Jung understood that the most transformative experiences of human life frequently come disguised as the greatest pains, and the encounter with a twin flame who rejects you is one of those experiences. The rejection happens because you're both at different moments in the individuation journey. While you might be ready to recognize and embrace this deep connection, they might still be dealing with unconscious fears, unresolved family patterns, or simply haven't developed the emotional maturity necessary to sustain this level of intensity. This doesn't mean the connection isn't real, it means the timing isn't aligned. Jung observed that when we project our anima or animus onto someone, we're essentially seeing in that person aspects of ourselves that we haven't completely integrated yet. If they reject you, it might be because they unconsciously perceive that you're more in love with your own projection than with who they really are. Or it could be that they themselves aren't ready to receive this level of intensity because they haven't yet developed a healthy relationship with their own soul. The pain you feel isn't just ordinary romantic rejection pain. It's the pain of the self, the deepest part of your psyche, which recognized an opportunity for integration and growth, but was prevented from manifesting fully. It's as if your very soul had been denied. And in a way, that's exactly what happened. But here's what Jung discovered that was most revolutionary. This denial isn't an end, it's a beginning. When your twin flame rejects you, they're forcing you to find within yourself what you were seeking in them. They're pushing you toward a journey of self-discovery that you might never have initiated if things had been easy. The rejection becomes the catalyst for the deepest transformation of your life. And now that you understand the real nature of this connection and this pain, you need to understand the 5 stages that follow, each with its own challenges and its own hidden gifts. The first stage after rejection is what Jung would call ego disintegration. It's when everything you believed about love, about special connections, about your own worth and place in the world crumbles completely. You enter a state that mystics know as the dark night of the soul, but which Jung understood as a necessary dissolution of psychic structures that no longer serve. In this stage, you question everything. You question whether you really felt what you felt, whether the connection was real, whether you're just a desperate person creating fantasies to deal with loneliness. You feel like you've lost touch with reality, as if you're the only person in the world living this intensity while the others simply went on with their life as if nothing had happened. The pain is physical, not just emotional. You might feel tightness in your chest, difficulty breathing, an emptiness in your stomach that no food can fill. Jung understood that when deep aspects of the psyche are activated and then blocked, the physical body manifests this psychic tension. It's as if every cell in your body knows that something fundamental has been lost. You might also fall into compulsive behaviors, attempting to diminish the pain. Maybe you obsessively check their social media, looking for signs that they're suffering too. Maybe you try to force contact, create situations to meet accidentally, or worse yet, try to convince them through logical arguments about why you should be together. None of this works, and actually only increases the sense of desperation and loss of dignity. Jung observed that during ego disintegration, the persona, our social mask, also begins to dissolve. You might have difficulty maintaining your usual performance at work, with friends, with family. It's as if the person you always were had been revealed as inadequate in the face of this experience's magnitude. And in a way, that's exactly what happened. But here's what you need to understand about this first stage. It's not pathological, it's sacred. Jung studied alchemical processes intensively, and understood that all true transformation begins with what the alchemists called nigredo, the rotting, the dissolution of what was, so that something new can be born. Your disintegration isn't a sign that you're breaking irreparably. It's a sign that you're finally ready to transform. The person you were before this encounter didn't have the capacity to sustain the level of love, consciousness, and integrity that this experience is calling you to develop. They need to die symbolically, so that a more evolved version of you can be born. The rejection was the trigger for this necessary death, and the pain you feel is the labor pain of birthing a new version of yourself. During this stage, it's crucial that you don't try to escape the pain through rebound relationships, addictions, or any form of emotional anesthesia. Jung insisted that conscious suffering, the kind that is felt fully without being avoided, is transformative in ways that avoided suffering never can be. You need to cross through this dark night, not go around it. Accept that you no longer know who you are. Accept that your old certainties about love and relationships have been shattered. Accept that you're in unknown territory where your usual strategies for dealing with life no longer work. This acceptance of your own confusion and fragmentation is the first step toward the reconstruction that's coming. The second stage is perhaps the most dangerous: obsession. It's when your mind, trying to make sense of the emotional chaos, fixates on the person who rejected you in an almost pathological way. Jung understood this as an extreme activation of the anima or animus complex, when psychic energy becomes trapped in a specific image and can't flow naturally. During obsession, they become the center of your internal universe. You wake up thinking about them, fall asleep dreaming of them, and during the day your mind constantly returns to memories of the moments you spent together, analyzing every word, every look, every gesture, searching for signs that maybe you misinterpreted everything. Maybe they really do feel something, but are just scared. Maybe they need time. Maybe if you're patient enough, show enough love, they'll eventually recognize what you have. Obsession has an addictive quality because it offers the illusion of closeness when reality is only distance. Every time you think about them, fantasize about them, or seek information about them, your brain releases small doses of dopamine that temporarily relieve the pain of separation. But like any addiction, tolerance increases, and you need bigger and bigger doses of fantasy to get the same relief. Jung observed that during obsession, we lose contact with present reality because all our libidinal energy is invested in an internal image. You might be physically present in conversations, commitments, responsibilities, but psychologically you're always with them, living in a parallel reality where you're together, where they finally understood, where love triumphed over all obstacles. This stage is also marked by behaviors that, if you looked from outside, you'd recognize as clearly problematic. Social media stalking becomes a daily ritual. You might deliberately drive by places where you know they go, hoping for a chance encounter. You might question mutual friends about them, seeking any information that feeds your reconciliation fantasies. Magical thinking also intensifies during this stage. You might look for signs in the universe, synchronicities that confirm you're meant to be together. Every song about true love that plays on the radio, every repeated number you see, every dream you have about them becomes evidence that the cosmos is conspiring in favor of your relationship. Jung understood these synchronicities as real, but also warned about the danger of interpreting them through unconscious personal desires. Obsession also frequently comes accompanied by extreme idealization of the person who rejected you. They become perfect in your mind, the only person in the world who could understand you, love you, complete you. You forget their flaws, minimize incompatibilities that were obvious during the time you spent together, and build a fantasy version of them that's much more about your own projections than about who they really are. But here's what Jung understood about obsession. It's not just pathology. It also has a function. It's the way the psyche finds to keep alive a connection with deep aspects of yourself that were activated through this person. Your unconscious knows there's something important in this experience that can't simply be discarded, even if your conscious mind doesn't understand exactly what it is. The way out of obsession doesn't happen through forced repression of thoughts about them, but through gradual understanding that what you're seeking in them actually exists within you. Jung called this withdrawal of projections, the process by which we recognize that the qualities we admire in the other are actually our own potentials that need to be developed. During this second stage, it's important that you begin to question not whether they'll come back, but what specifically they represent for you. What qualities do they have that you'd like to develop in yourself? What aspects of their personality awaken your admiration, and how can you cultivate these aspects internally? Obsession begins to dissolve when you stop trying to possess these qualities through them and start incorporating them into yourself. The third stage is characterized by deep anger that emerges when you finally accept that they're really not going to change their mind, that it wasn't just fear or bad timing, but a conscious choice not to be with you. This anger has multiple layers and serves specific purposes in the healing and transformation process. The first layer of anger is directed at the very person who rejected you. How can they be so blind? How can they not see what you have that's special? How can they choose to be with people who clearly don't value them like you do? This anger frequently comes mixed with feelings of moral superiority. You convince yourself that you're better, more evolved, more capable of true love than the people they choose to relate to. Jung understood this anger as a natural defense of the ego against the narcissistic wound of rejection. When someone we consider special rejects us, it doesn't just hurt our feelings, but questions our self-image, our sense of self-worth, our belief that we're worthy of love. Anger temporarily protects us from this deeper pain by placing us in a position of superiority over the one who rejected us. The second layer of anger is directed at the very concept of twin flame, at all the New Age spirituality that made you believe there's someone special destined for you. You might feel deceived by books, videos, teachings that promise true love always finds a way. You question whether you were naive, whether you wasted time believing in romantic fantasies when you should have focused on more practical and achievable relationships. The third and most important layer of anger is directed at yourself. Anger for allowing yourself to be so vulnerable, for believing you were special, for creating fantasies about someone who clearly didn't feel the same way. This self-anger can be devastating because it comes accompanied by deep shame. The feeling that you humiliated yourself, that you exposed intimate parts of yourself to someone who didn't value them. Jung observed that anger, when conscious and not repressed, has a powerful transformative function. It provides the necessary energy to break emotional bonds that no longer serve, to establish boundaries that were violated, to reclaim personal power that was handed over to the other. Conscious anger is different from destructive anger. It's a vital force that drives necessary changes. During this stage, you might feel impulses to confront the person, to say exactly what you think about their choices, to try to make them understand how much they hurt you. These impulses are natural, but Jung would warn about the danger of acting impulsively based on anger. Instead, it's important to use this energy constructively, channeling it toward positive changes in your own life. Anger also serves to burn romantic illusions that might have been hindering your growth. Many people spend their whole lives looking for a magical connection that will solve all their emotional problems, that will finally make them feel complete and loved. The anger that arises from twin flame rejection can finally destroy this childish fantasy and force you to develop a more mature relationship with yourself. It's during anger that many people begin to make significant practical changes in their lives. Maybe they finally end relationships that weren't working, change careers, move to a new city, start therapy, begin more consistent spiritual practices. Anger's energy, when well directed, can be fuel for transformations you've been postponing for years. Jung understood that repressing anger is much more dangerous than feeling it consciously. Repressed anger transforms into depression, chronic resentment, or can be projected onto other people destructively. It's important that during this stage you find healthy ways to express this energy. Intense physical exercise, art, writing, or even therapy can be appropriate channels. Anger can also awaken warrior aspects of your personality that might have been dormant. If you've always been a very compliant person, who avoided conflicts, who prioritized harmony above honesty, anger can finally give you the necessary strength to establish healthy boundaries and defend your own interests. Eventually, if you allow anger to be felt completely without repressing it or acting destructively based on it, it naturally transforms. The energy that was previously directed outward, trying to change the other or the situation, begins to turn inward constructively. You stop spending energy trying to make them see and recognize your worth, and start investing that energy in actually developing that worth internally. The fourth stage represents a crucial turning point in the process, the awakening. It's when you finally understand, not just intellectually but on a visceral level, that the rejection didn't happen despite the real connection you had, but because of it. Jung understood that the most transformative experiences of human life frequently come disguised as losses, and it's in this stage that this truth reveals itself completely. The awakening usually happens after a period of emotional exhaustion, when you simply don't have energy anymore to maintain the obsessions, fantasies, or even anger. It's as if your psyche finally stopped resisting what happened and opened itself to understand the deeper meaning of the experience. You might wake up one day and realize you haven't thought about them in the last few hours, or have a revealing dream, or simply a sudden understanding that comes like a flash of light in the midst of darkness. During awakening, you begin to see the entire experience through a completely different lens. Instead of seeing rejection as proof that you're not worthy of love, you begin to understand that you were chosen for a form of growth that few people have the courage to face. The person who rejected you wasn't being cruel or blind. They were fulfilling their role in a spiritual dynamic much greater than either of you could understand at the time. Jung would call this the self's perspective, when we manage to see our personal experiences within the broader context of individuation and soul growth. You realize that if they had accepted your love, you both probably would have gotten lost in a symbiotic fusion that would prevent the necessary individual growth. The rejection forced you to develop a deeper relationship with yourself, to find within yourself the qualities you were seeking in them. The awakening also brings understanding that you didn't lose your twin flame. You found aspects of them within yourself. The qualities you most admired in them, that most awakened your love, were actually reflections of your own potentials that were dormant. The intense connection you felt wasn't just with them as an external person, but with parts of yourself that they symbolically represented. This is the stage when many people report mystical experiences or deep spiritual insights. You might begin to perceive real synchronicities, not those created by the obsessive magical thinking of the second stage, but meaningful coincidences that point to a larger pattern operating in your life. You might begin to have vivid dreams that offer guidance, or feel a stronger connection with your intuition and inner wisdom. Awakening frequently comes accompanied by a period of intense creativity. The energy that was previously trapped in obsession and anger now frees itself for creative expression. You might feel impulses to write, paint, make music, or any form of art that allows you to channel and integrate everything you learned during previous stages. Jung understood creativity as one of the most direct manifestations of the individuation process. It's also during awakening that you might begin to feel genuine gratitude for the person who rejected you. Not forced or superficial spiritual gratitude, but a deep recognition that they gave you a greater gift than any relationship could offer. They forced you to grow, to know yourself, to develop aspects of yourself that might have remained dormant forever if things had been easy. You might also begin to perceive how this experience changed your way of relating to other people. Maybe you develop more compassion for people going through similar pain, or more wisdom to recognize authentic connections versus fantasy projections. You might discover you have something unique to offer the world based on the depth of what you lived and learned. Awakening doesn't completely eliminate pain or longing, but transforms their quality. Instead of a pain that diminishes and victimizes, it becomes sacred pain that honors the magnitude of the experience. It's like the difference between an infected wound and an honor scar. Both mark the body, but one poisons, while the other tells a story of survival and growth. During this stage, you might also begin to attract people and opportunities that are aligned with who you became through this process. Jung observed that when we complete significant aspects of individuation, our personal energy changes in a way that attracts experiences compatible with our new level of consciousness. The fifth and final stage is integration. When you finally incorporate all the learnings, insights, and transformations from previous stages into a new way of existing in the world. Jung understood integration as the final goal of the individuation process, when fragmented aspects of personality unify into a conscious and functional totality. During integration, you don't forget what happened, or lose the love you felt, but both transform into something much greater than they originally were. The experience becomes part of your personal wisdom, an internal reference for understanding and navigating future human connections with greater consciousness and maturity. You develop what Jung would call conscious love, based on real recognition instead of fantasy projection. The person you become through this process has a completely different energetic quality. There's an integrity, a completeness, an inner peace that comes from having faced and survived one of the most challenging experiences a human being can live. You no longer need to seek external validation, because you've developed a solid internal source of self-worth. Future relationships have a different quality, because you can now distinguish between authentic connection and unconscious projection. You can love deeply without losing your identity. You can surrender without abandoning yourself. You can recognize true soulmates without becoming obsessed with them. The capacity to love actually expands, but becomes more mature and less neurotic. Jung observed that people who complete significant individuation processes frequently develop what he called the transcendent function, the ability to mediate between opposites and find creative syntheses. In the context of relationships, this manifests as the ability to maintain your individuality while connecting deeply with others, to love without possessing, to commit without losing yourself. Integration also frequently awakens a sense of purpose or mission that goes beyond personal satisfaction. You might discover you have something unique to contribute to the world, something that's only possible because of the depth of what you lived and learned. Many people who go through this journey become therapists, counselors, artists, or simply wiser friends who can offer perspective and support to others going through similar experiences. Integration doesn't mean you'll never feel pain in relationships again, or that you've become invulnerable to future rejections. It means you've developed internal resources to deal with these experiences more consciously and constructively. You know you can survive loss because you've survived before, and you know that every intense experience has transformative potential if it's embraced instead of avoided. It's also during integration that many people report a sense of deep gratitude for the entire journey, including the most painful parts. They can see retrospectively how each stage was necessary, how each pain contributed to growth, how each moment of despair was actually preparing ground for deeper renewal. True integration frequently comes accompanied by a change in relationship with the concept of twin flame. Instead of seeing it as something you need to find outside yourself, you begin to understand that the true twin flame is the conscious union between all aspects of your own soul. The love you felt for that specific person reveals itself as love for life, for existence, for the infinite possibility of growth and connection that exists within you. If you've made it this far, you probably recognized at least some of these stages in your own experience. And if you're still in the early stages, I want you to know there's nothing wrong with you. There's no rush to get over this experience. And most importantly, you're not destined to suffer forever. Carl Jung taught us that life's most painful experiences frequently carry the most valuable gifts, but only if we have the courage to live them completely instead of trying to escape them. Your twin flame's rejection isn't evidence that you're not worthy of love. It's evidence that you were chosen for a form of growth that will transform you into a person capable of loving and being loved in ways you can't yet imagine. True love isn't about possessing someone who awakens your passion. It's about becoming someone capable of recognizing and honoring sacred connections wherever they appear. Your twin flame may have rejected you in this lifetime, but they also gave you the greatest possible gift. They forced you to find within yourself everything you were seeking in them. The journey isn't easy, and I won't minimize the pain you felt or are still feeling. But trust the process. Trust that there's an intelligence operating in your life that's greater than your current conscious understanding. Trust that you have the strength to cross through this and emerge on the other side more whole, wiser, more capable of love than you've ever been before. And remember, you weren't rejected by your twin flame. You were chosen by life to discover that the love you were seeking was always within you, waiting to be recognized, developed, and shared with the world in ways only you can offer. If this video touched something deep within you, if you recognized your own journey in these words, leave in the comments, "I trust the process." That way I'll know the message arrived where it needed to arrive, and that you understood that not every rejection is an ending. Some are beginnings in disguise. And if you want to deepen this transformation journey through pain even further, I have something special for you. I've created 2 ebooks that can be your companions in this healing and growth process. The first is 21 Days of Transformation with Carl Jung, a practical guide that will take you through the most powerful techniques Jung developed for individuation and self-knowledge. For 21 days, you'll work with specific exercises to integrate your shadow, dialogue with your unconscious, and transform pain into wisdom. It's like having Jung as your personal therapist, guiding you step by step through the process of becoming who you really are. The second is the Survival Manual for Difficult Days, because I know that when you're going through twin flame rejection, some days are simply hard to get through. This manual contains practical strategies, based on depth psychology, for navigating the most challenging moments of the journey. These are tools you can use when the pain feels unbearable, when loneliness tightens its grip, when you question whether you'll be able to overcome this. The links are in the video's first comment. Thank you for staying with me until here, for having the courage to look your pain in the face and transform it into wisdom. What you're living through will pass, but the person you're going to become through this experience, that will stay forever. See you in the next video. Take care of yourself.